Hello, everyone, and welcome to this CliftonStrengths Chat. I'm really excited to be here with you today to talk about Clifton's strengths and how we can really leverage our top 5 during a time of uncertainty, especially with what's going on right now. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world. There's a lot of change in our own personal lives, whether it's our daily habits, whether it's our location, whether it's just the innate fear of kind of not knowing what's going to happen in the future. And so today we're really going to walk through what ways we can lean into our top 5 Clifton strengths and how those different strengths can help us process through some of this information, how we can identify those strengths showing up maybe in times of stress and maybe times of uncertainty, but also how we can use these to implement self-care and what we can do to make sure that even if these are showing up in ways that are not productive and maybe are a little bit harmful to who we are and what we're trying to accomplish, how we can either redirect them or realize what's happening and start working on creating better habits with those. So first things first, I'm going to need you to go ahead and pull up your Clifton strengths. That's going to be the one thing you really need for this session, is to have your top 5 in front of you. I always would advise you to have your insight guide, which is from our website. So if you go to lynn.gallup.edu, that link's on the screen, you'll be able to pull up your own insight guide. What I think is really important about that is that you are able to look at your top 5, but how they're unique to you. Remember, your insight guide is unique to you. Everyone's insight guide is different. Even if I have positivity and you have positivity, the way it's described in our insight guide is going to be a little bit different based on our other top 5 and the way we answered every other question in the assessment. If you go to lynn.gallup.com, if you've taken the assessment, you'll log in with your Lynn University email and whatever password you made at time of creation. If you haven't taken the assessment yet and you want to participate, what I would say is go ahead and take a pause here. Go to lynn.gallup.com, sign in with your Lynn credentials. You'll create a password. You'll get an email to your account. Once you get that email, you can go ahead and activate your account. Go back in, you'll be able to take this assessment. Once again, this is an awesome assessment. It gives you a lot of insight into your own personality traits, some really great ways that you build relationships, process information, and really set your goals. So it's an awesome assessment. It takes about 20 to 40 minutes. It is typically of cost to people who take it, but for you, the university covers those costs. I would really encourage you to go ahead and take it. Like I said, it's a timed quiz, so it takes about 20 to 40 minutes depending on how quickly you answer the questions. The questions will time out. So try to do it during a time where you're not distracted and you can really focus and take that assessment that's true to you. Once you take it, come back and go ahead and join us for the rest of this presentation. So once you get those up, great news, we are going to go ahead and just get started. So just some overview of Clifton strengths and what that means in terms of what is Clifton strengths and why do we use it. So Clifton strengths believes that each person has a unique set of talents and behaviors, which we agree with that too. We're all very unique. We all have talents, which are just our natural innate ways of doing things that we tend to do really easily and they come naturally to us. Some of us are very talented with identifying patterns in data. Some of us are very talented with building relationships with others. It feels very easy. So those things are different talents that individuals have, and we don't all have the same set and those different skills. Same thing with our behaviors. We all have different behaviors. Clifton Strengths also really believes in a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. What's great about this is that they know that you have the ability to grow. If you think of every challenge in your life as an opportunity to grow and go beyond, it's going to help you out tenfold. If you think this is something that's happening to me, I have no control over it, that's a fixed mindset. But that growth mindset knows that you can lean into your unique talents, your unique strengths and behaviors, and move past it, whether that means you are adjusting something on your end or you are working with things around you to get to a different level. That's what's really great about this, is we know that we all have areas of growth and we all have abilities to continue to improve. And it's important to remember that in times that are trying, especially like these, is that we have abilities to do things. They can be small, they can be reaching out to a friend via FaceTime, it can be setting up an event online that you can see club members, your roommates, and things like that. Or you can think, wow, this really stinks. I miss my friends. I wish this didn't happen. what can you do to change that fixed mindset and really transition into the growth mindset? If you have questions about this, if you are really struggling with one area in particular, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information will be on the end. I'm really excited to talk to you all about that. Finally, Clifton Strengths believes that authentic happiness comes from identifying, cultivating, and using your strengths every single day. This means that every day you are using them whether you realize it or not. Like I said, these strengths really come just from your talents. You're answering questions, so your talents are what makes you unique. You're using them every day, whether it's you are really competitive, and so for you, being the first one up and starting on your homework or being the first one into your chime classroom, for you, maybe that's a little bit of an accomplishment. And other people may not get that, but for you, it's something that you're using every day. And that makes you happy when you do get to accomplish those smaller goals. So recognizing those, but also processing through and seeing how we can continue to grow and develop those top 5. So what I want to touch on specifically with our Clifton Strengths today is resiliency. So resiliency, if you aren't aware what that is really our own bounce back ability. So thinking of it as resiliency is kind of like a tennis ball. If you get squeezed by external pressure, so whether it's stress, you're feeling overwhelmed, relationships are bringing you down, if you're resilient, you bounce back. Like a tennis ball, if you kind of squeeze it a little bit, it'll bounce back. The former shape when the pressure is no longer there. So when those things kind of ease up, when life is easy, you're back to where you are. But a lack of resiliency is really kind of, it can be illustrated by a ping pong ball or a table tennis ball, whatever you want to call it. That if there's pressure on it, it'll change shape. It'll get crunched down, and even when you release that pressure, it stays. It stays in the shape that it has become. It's broken. It doesn't bounce back. So really thinking about resiliency as the ability to bounce back no matter what life throws at you. Obviously, some things are a little bit bigger. Some things are a little bit more pressure. And so for a while, those will adjust how you are seen and how you show up in the world. But over time, you bounce back. It's the resiliency. And that's kind of an easy definition of resiliency and kind of a great example of how you can see that showing up. For example, some resilient blind spots based on our Clifton Strengths. Those of you who are achievers who are used to being able to really lead those clubs and organizations on campus, who are really used to having that checklist where you're checking everything off, you are busy every day, you may really be struggling right now because that pressure pushing down on you is coming from the ability to not see that you are impacting the work or that you have no work to do. If you feel like all of a sudden all these things that were on your plate got taken off, you may really be struggling. Additionally, those of you who have woo, even relater, you may really be struggling because you are feeling alone, you're not seeing new people, you're not making those connections that you were able to make when you were on campus and had people around you all the time. That can be really hard for a woo. And while a lot of us are talking about, yeah, we're a little bit lonely, or maybe it's hard being away from our friends, this can really impact those people who have relationship building strengths to another level. So thinking about that. So what I would encourage you to do is take a moment and go through some areas where you really feel like you're struggling and what's really bringing you down and maybe making you feel a little bit sad. And then look at your top 5 and try to connect those. See what from your top 5 is really going to help you understand why you're feeling that way. So, like I said, if you're feeling really sad and you're really missing people and the connections, is it from connectedness? Are you feeling really drained, maybe because you have empathy or connectedness in the world? So you are really struggling because you feel like you're taking on all this stress from these other people who are going through these horrible things and who are going through this really uncertain time. Do you feel that in your own soul? Is that bringing you down? And so try to think about what lens or what Clifton Strengths lens some of this struggle is coming from. If we don't name them and we don't understand why we are struggling in those areas, it's gonna be hard to remain resilient and kind of flip those around and utilize those to get rid of those feelings that are struggling. So I wanted to kind of talk about some other areas where, as we're stressed out, some things that might be showing up for us. So what I would say is, if you have activator, people who have activator are really awesome at getting things started starting projects, getting things moving, really go, let's start this, let's get this done. You may be feeling impatient with someone, whether it's a family member, whether it's the community as a whole, because you don't think that things are moving quick enough. You don't feel like we're moving forward quickly with solutions, with answers. Maybe that's really stressing you out. Maybe you're not realizing that that's coming from that place, but understanding why maybe you are feeling impatient with people or impatient with the lack of movement happening outside. If you have consistency, this was a lot of change. For a lot of people, things have changed quickly. Therefore, whether it's you aren't able to go to your favorite gym, you aren't living on campus anymore, you've moved home, now you're home, but so are your siblings, and your daily life is different. You aren't able to do the things you would normally do when you're home because you aren't able to leave and go out into your community. So you may really be struggling to come up with that new normal. And even on top of that, if you lead through intellection, it may be hard for you because intellection or input or any of my CliftonStrengths who have a lot of learner, another one, who really seek out information to pull in to support whatever thing. But if you're seeking out information, you may be taking on a lot of stress because you're seeking out information about the pandemic, about COVID-19. And with that, it's really hard because now you're taking on all this information. And if you're not processing through it or you have information overload, it's going to continue to hold you down and really add that stress on top of you. So try to think through what your top 5 are. Hopefully this gave you some examples of areas or connected some dots for you and maybe why you're showing up. Maybe you aren't even thinking about this. You just know things aren't going great. So let's talk about when stressors and anxiety show up. So some ways you may be able to even identify in the first place that you are stressed or you're having anxiety is recognizing that you're having a bad day. Just the day doesn't feel good. You're snapping at people, you feel grumpy, you don't want to be around people, or you want to be around them, but you don't like being around them. That can be hard. Same thing with finding a person frustrating. There's a difference between finding someone frustrating when they're doing their own thing versus maybe you're at home with siblings and you all are getting on each other's nerves because you're siblings, and sometimes that happens. But there's a difference between finding what they're doing on their own, if your sibling is in the other room doing their own Zoom or Chime class, and you just are annoyed by their voice, thinking of what is happening in your life that's maybe putting that stressor on you, that you're not able to let that go. Additionally, maybe you're feeling really mismatched in your environment. You don't feel comfortable where you are. You don't think you belong there. It's hard. So really, I think a question that we all need to ask ourselves is, what are other ways that we know we're feeling stressed? So for some people, it may be crying really easily or something silly. Maybe you knock over some water or something and you really get upset and you cry. Or maybe it's isolating yourself. So you find yourself spending a lot of time alone in your room, not really responding to text messages. So really, for you, it's important to take a minute, I think right now, and just pause this and think, what things do you do when stressors and anxiety show up in your life? Now that we kind of have talked about some things that show up and how they show up, I think it's important to figure out how we can reframe things in order to bounce back. What are things we can do to reframe the stressors around us? Because the stressors are still there. We are still going through a lot of things. There's still a lot happening in the world around us, in our own personal lives, as we adjust to what is the new normal for the time being, and really understanding that it's not about removing those items from what we're going through. It's not about escaping from things that are stressing us out. A lot of these things are just present, and so it's about reframing them in ways that we can lessen the pressure on us, even though they are still there. So let's lean into what we know. So what you know is your top 5. You know that those are true to you. You know that they are internal for you, and you use them a lot. So as you read through your top 5 insight guide, I would really encourage you to think about what you can do to reframe and lean into those. So let's talk about how we can really crank up the volume on different virtues that shine through. So for example, maybe you are feeling really overwhelmed. There's a lot going on, there's a lot of change, and maybe your consistency, your schedule's not the same. It's not what it has been. So those stressors are really impacting your consistency. But if you have strategic in your top 5 or another strength that can really help you see alternate routes in planning, whether that's focus, whether that's achiever, because you get to kind of create a to-do list, a task list, or in this case, I'm going to pull from strategic. It can help you see simplicity and alternate routes during overwhelming times. So maybe there's a lot going on, there's a lot of information out there. What are ways you can do to strategically or look at simplistic opportunities or creating a new schedule? Viewing this as a, what can I lean into to think of alternate schedules and alternate routes I can take here? So whether that's, okay, I used to get up at 5 o'clock, go to the gym before my 8 o'clock class and swing by the calf. What can you do now to create an alternate route to still give you a sense of schedule, but it's not your typical consistent schedule, but using your strategic to see new ways of doing that and seeing different ways you can do that. Additionally, I mentioned earlier empathy, that maybe that's causing you stress because you're feeling for those around you, but maybe you can lean into empathy as a alternate to being really upset if you have relator or woo or another relationship building talent, because maybe you're really missing your friends and maybe you're really sad that you don't get to spend time with them, or maybe there's family members you aren't able to spend time with right now. Think about from an empathetic perspective, if you have that in your top 5, how that is impacting and how you are helping those around you. Because if you lean into your empathy, thinking through the reason we are doing social distancing and why we are taking this time to remove ourselves as much as we can and only do essential errands or really not go out at all so we aren't impacting others around us. Because empathy isn't just about yourself, it's about caring for those around you and feeling what those around you feel. So how can you lean into your empathy to give you a new perspective on maybe why we are in the situation we're in and why we take the measures that we're taking right now? Additionally, focus. Maybe you're feeling really overwhelmed. Like I said earlier, maybe you took in a lot of information. There's a lot of information out there and it's changing and we don't know where it's going to go long term. So I know for me, I really lean into some of my talents that really focus on acquiring information. So I have that, but for me, sometimes it's overwhelming. You can take in too much information. So instead of really continuing to pull that in, if you have focus, how can you, instead of focusing on the information that's out there or the lot of things that are happening in the world or the unknown, focus on something that you can control. You can focus on something that you can get done that day. You can refocus your focus, as silly as that is, to try to feel calm, whether that's you create a checklist and that's the task that you're going to accomplish right now is just sitting down and writing a paper or setting up a time to do something with your friends. So thinking about those different talents that you can lean into. Once again, if you are feeling stressed, you've identified your stressors, but you don't really know what other talents you can lean on. At the end of this, I'm going to have my contact information. I'm more than happy to sit down and have those conversations with you and help you kind of identify those things. Once again, we talked about one of the ways that maybe we can identify our stress is by feeling frustrated with others. So I would encourage you to first and foremost pause if you're feeling frustrated with those around you. I know it can be hard if you are in a space with others around you and you aren't able to really have all the space that you would normally have on your own and it's the same people over and over again. But I would say pause, think about how maybe your sibling, your parents, your roommates, people you're with right now are different than you. Think about maybe what are their top 5. If you know them, great. If not, maybe think through and look at all 34 and try to identify maybe where that's coming from. Knowing people are typically doing things for their own reason, they have a positive intent behind it. When you're sitting there and you're taking in a lot of news, maybe a sibling's feeling frustrated because they're feeling overwhelmed with the amount of information you're taking in, but you're taking it in because you have input, and for you, you need that content. So knowing that they're not doing things typically to annoy you, sometimes they are, siblings are siblings, and sometimes people can get frustrated and act out, but for the most part, people have positive intent or people have a reason behind what they're doing it. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean that it's wrong. So for example, maybe someone's really questioning the decisions that leadership is making right now. And in the country, they're really questioning behind why we are social distancing and they're trying to understand what's happening around us. But they may be looking for that understanding and knowledge behind that decision because one of their top 5 needs that. They need to understand the logic behind thinking, whether it's strategic or futuristic or things like that. So if you are seeing things from the good and acknowledging the perspective that people offer, they can oftentimes bring more of that to the table and really help you understand where they're coming from and understand their way of functioning, because it's probably not how you operate, which is great because it gives you a perspective on what's happening around us. Additionally, I talked about feeling mismatched, so really not feeling at home in whether you're home or where you are right now. So I think it's important because it's very similar to what I just talked about in terms of understanding the differences that people bring to the table. Differences are differentiators. So what that means is everyone brings different things to the table, whether that's a relationship-based perspective or a attention to detail, things like that. And maybe you're feeling mismatched, but thinking about the world around those, but also how you can contribute in that space you are right now. So look through your top 5. Take a minute and identify which of your top 5, when you first saw it, did you think, that sounds, I don't know about that, I don't love that theme, or just the word itself doesn't feel great. So for me, I have woo, which is for winning others over. It means that I really like spending time with people. I like meeting new people, but sometimes it comes off a little fake. Sometimes people don't know why I'm talking to them for a few minutes and kind of bounce off to other things. Sometimes woo comes off a little fake. Similar, competition. It's a really popular one among our students. So if you have this, sometimes competition can make you sound like a little bit of a sore loser because you have a real focus on winning, even if you accept your defeat in grace. Sometimes it still means that, I don't know about that. But thinking just through your top 5, if you're feeling mismatched in your environment, maybe you're struggling to connect on a topic or something, thinking of all the value that you bring to the table. Recognizing the value you bring to the community you're a part of right now, whether that's your family, your roommates that you're staying with, or anything like that. Think of the value that you have, and instead of trying to hide what you're doing or why you're doing something, explain it. For example, it may be really hard if you're at home, if you have siblings who fight or family that's fighting or bickering, it may feel like they're on different pages. So recognize your harmony talent is probably feeling a lot of anxiety right now, but you can bring them together. So instead of picking something like an intense game night, finding a happy-go-lucky movie that you think everyone can enjoy, having a night together and spending time together in a very harmonious way. Additionally, if you have family, let them read through your CliftonStrengths. Let your family, let your roommates, let them read through it so they understand your way of thinking. It can really provide an alternative opportunity to understand you, which I think is really unique and really special. So we talked a little bit about self-care and what are things we can do for self-care with our CliftonStrengths. So I want to enjoy this time. It's a lot happening. There's a lot of negative out there, and there's a lot of sadness out there right now, along with uncertainty. So remember to enjoy different moments, the things that are happening, those small milestones that you're accomplishing, whether it's accomplishing a class, wrapping up the semester, graduating, finishing up your classes. I know that it's really hard because a lot of things are different than what you had anticipated for the next few months to look like, but remember to enjoy. And with that comes the acronym of embracing. So working to understand how you can embrace your strengths. So like I said, continue to revisit your strengths, remembering what strengths maybe can lean into some of those stressors and ways we can use it as a protector from some of those stressors. Additionally, embracing it and letting others understand who you are. So how can you share with others who you are so they can embrace you as well? Nurture. How can you use your strengths to get to a place where you are relaxed? So what are those strengths that we talked about that can really help you create an environment where you feel comfortable, where you feel like you are contributing, that you feel good to be a part of? And then jogging. So this is a little bit of a stretch, but it's about routine. And whether you are a runner or not, you know that it's important to get into a routine. Your routine has changed immensely since we've transitioned online, since you've maybe transitioned to a different location and things like that. So how can you start over and starting to get your body and brain in sync? Not just going from class to bed to class to bed to class to bed, but actually starting to embrace some of those other things and creating other traditions, whether it's going for a walk or a run around your neighborhood or spending time with family and friends digitally, or if you are with them right now together. And then the O stands for organization. Once again, organizing and treating your body like it is the most precious thing in the world. It's really important to take care of yourself right now for so many different reasons, but that includes eating healthy, focusing on nutrition. It's really easy to really binge some of the junk food that is in our pantries, or drink unnecessarily, whether it's caffeine or other drinks, and sleep too much, stay up too late, things like that. So really take inventory of what you're doing, how you're treating your body. Are you giving it time for sleep, for rest, for nutrition, and really also thinking about how are you utilizing the spaces you have to remain healthy, and whether that's leaning into home workouts or different games that you can play with siblings, with roommates, coming up with buddy workouts, leaning into things like that. And finally, you. Everything starts and ends with you. You is all about focusing on breathing techniques. It's focusing on mindfulness, self-awareness, and self-worth. There are a lot of different presentations similar to this that we talk about that have focus on breathing techniques, mindfulness. We go live Tuesdays and Thursdays with yoga. So thinking about different ways you can continue to do that and how we're supporting you to help you do that. If you have any other ideas of ways that we can do that, make sure you let us know. So like I've said, thank you so much. I've had a great time kind of walking through this with you. I would really encourage you, if you have any more questions, set up an appointment with me. You can click my Calendly link here. You can also just email strengths@lynn.gallup.edu. I am so excited to chat with you about different ways we can lean into those strengths and continue to use them to alleviate some of those stressors happening right now in the midst of a pandemic. How are we leaning into those? And so I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, feel free, set up an email or go ahead and set up a coaching session. Once again, thanks so much. I hope you have a great day.